The red sand of Kepler 442b swirled in angry clouds across the mining colony. 8-year-old Hyunwoo pressed his face against the transport window, watching the strange alien workers moving between the massive drilling machines. His father, Daehyun Park, sat beside him reading reports on his tablet. "Stay close to me when we get out," Daehyun said without looking up. "This place can be dangerous." Hyunwoo nodded, but his attention was already caught by the tall, scaly creatures working near the crystal extractors. The Vorthak were unlike anything he had seen in the picture books back on Earth. They moved with purpose, their thick arms easily lifting equipment that would require machines for humans to handle. The transport stopped near the main administration building. Daehyun gathered his papers and stepped out into the dusty air. Hyunwoo followed, immediately feeling the gritty sand against his skin despite his protective suit. "The hegemony officials are waiting inside," Daehyun told his son. "I need to discuss the new mining quotas with them. You can look around the visitor area, but do not wander off." The administration building was a squat gray structure that looked like it had been built quickly and cheaply. Inside, alien species from across the galaxy worked at various stations. Hyunwoo had never seen so many different kinds of beings in one place. There were the blue-skinned Zalari with their forearms, the insect-like Keth clicking their mandibles as they worked, and dozens of others he could not identify. Daehyun disappeared into a meeting room with several important-looking aliens wearing hegemony uniforms. Hyunwoo sat in the waiting area, trying not to stare at the workers passing by. After what felt like hours, he heard raised voices coming from the meeting room. His father sounded angry. Bored and curious, Hyunwoo stood up and walked toward the large windows that faced the mining operations. The Vorthak were still working outside, their movements now seeming more hurried than before. Dark clouds were gathering on the horizon and the wind was picking up strength. A young Zalari worker noticed him looking outside. "Storm coming," she said in broken standard. "Bad one. All work stop soon." As if responding to her words, alarms began sounding throughout the building. Workers started moving quickly, securing equipment and heading for shelter. Through the chaos, Hyunwoo saw something that made him step closer to the window. A small group of Vorthak workers were still outside, trying to secure a massive drilling rig. The storm was moving faster than expected, and the wind was already strong enough to knock over smaller equipment. One of the Vorthak, an elderly one with deep scars across his scaled face, was shouting orders to the others. The meeting room door burst open, and hegemony officials rushed out, speaking rapidly in their own language. Daehyun followed them, looking worried. "The storm will be here in minutes," one official said. "All non-essential personnel must evacuate to the underground shelters immediately." Daehyun looked around for his son. "Hyunwoo!" "We need to go now." But Hyunwoo was no longer by the window. In his curiosity about the storm and the working Vorthak, he had slipped outside through a side door. The wind hit him immediately, stronger than anything he had ever felt. Sand flew everywhere, making it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. He tried to find his way back to the door, but the building looked the same from every angle in the swirling dust. Panic began to set in as he realized he was lost. The storm was getting worse by the minute, and he could barely hear anything over the howling wind. Stumbling forward, Hyunwoo found himself in an area he did not recognize. Large machines stood like metal monsters in the gloom, and crystal formations jutted up from the ground like strange trees. This was deeper in the mining operation than he had ever seen from the windows. He tried calling for help, but his voice was lost in the storm. His protective suit was keeping him alive, but he could feel the sand finding its way into every crack and opening. Fear made his chest tight as he realized how much trouble he was in. That was when he heard the voices, deep rumbling sounds that were definitely not human. Through the storm, he could make out the shapes of several large figures moving between the crystal formations. Vorthak workers, he realized. They were taking shelter in what looked like a natural cave formed by the crystal growths. Hyunwoo hesitated. Everything he had been taught told him to be careful around aliens, especially ones as big and strong as the Vorthak. But the storm was getting worse, and he had no other choice. He stumbled toward the cave entrance. The Vorthak workers noticed him immediately. There were 5 of them, all large and intimidating with their scaled skin and powerful builds. The eldest one, the scarred Vorthak he had seen from the window, stepped forward and looked down at the small human child. For a moment, nobody moved. Hyunwoo stood in the entrance of their shelter, dripping with sand and obviously lost. The Vorthak exchanged glances, speaking in their own language in low, rumbling voices. Then the elderly Vorthak, whose name was Kethvar, though Hyunwoo did not know this yet, did something unexpected. He knelt down to bring himself closer to the child's height and spoke in careful accented standard. "You are lost, small one?" Hyunwoo nodded, too scared to speak. "The storm is bad. You come inside. We keep you safe." Another Vorthak, a female with intricate patterns carved into her scales, spoke urgently to Kethvar in their language. Even without understanding the words, Hyunwoo could tell she was worried about something. Kethvar listened, then looked back at Hyunwoo. His large golden eyes seemed to be weighing something important. Finally he stood and gestured for the boy to come deeper into the cave. "What is your name, young human?" he asked as they moved away from the storm. "Hyunwoo," the boy managed to say. "I am Kethvar. This is Silthara." He indicated the female Vorthak who had spoken before. "We will protect you until the storm passes and you can return to your family." What Hyunwoo did not understand was the enormous risk these Vorthak were taking. The hegemony had strict rules about interactions between species, especially involving humans. Being found harboring a human child without authorization could result in severe punishment for the entire Vorthak work group. But as Kethvar settled the frightened boy into a corner of the cave and Silthara brought him water from their emergency supplies, it was clear that their decision had already been made. The Vorthak honor code was simple: protect those who cannot protect themselves regardless of species or consequence. Outside, the storm raged with increasing fury. And somewhere in the administration building, Dae-hyun was frantically organizing search parties, unaware that his son was safe in the care of beings who would soon pay a terrible price for their kindness. The storm lasted through the night, and by morning, the entire mining colony was in chaos. Dae-hyun had not slept at all, coordinating with hegemony security forces as they searched every building and tunnel system. His son was nowhere to be found. In the crystal caves, Hyunwoo woke up surrounded by the gentle rumbling of Vorthak voices. Silthara was preparing a simple meal from their emergency rations while Kethvar spoke quietly with the other workers. The boy did not understand their language, but he could tell they were worried about something more than just the storm. "The search teams will come here soon," Kethvar explained to Hyunwoo in simple standard. "We must move you deeper into the tunnels." Hyunwoo did not understand why they could not just take him back to his father. "Why can't I go home now?" he asked. Silthara knelt beside him, her golden eyes kind but sad. "The hegemony does not like when different species help each other without permission. If they find you with us, they will think we took you on purpose." "But you saved me from the storm," Hyunwoo said, confused. "Yes," Kethvar replied, "and that is why we must keep you hidden until we can find a safe way to return you." What the Vorthak did not tell the child was that hegemony security forces were already questioning alien workers throughout the colony. Any species found in unauthorized contact with humans faced immediate punishment. The penalties could range from reduced food rations to complete exile from hegemony space. By the second day, Commander Veltharion arrived at the mining colony. He was a high-ranking hegemony official, known for his harsh treatment of worker populations. His ship landed near the administration building, and within hours, systematic interrogations began. The Vorthak workers who had been in the main mining areas during the storm were brought in first. Commander Veltharion was convinced that one of the alien species was hiding the missing human child. His methods of questioning were not gentle. In the deep tunnels, Hyunwoo was learning about Vorthak culture from his protectors. A young Vorthak named Nimura, barely older than Hyunwoo himself, had become his constant companion. She taught him simple words in their language and showed him how to move quietly through the crystal formations. "Kethvar's my grandfather," Nimura explained as they sat together eating the bland but nutritious Vorthak food. "He is very wise. All the workers respect him." "Why do you work in these dangerous mines?" Hyunwoo asked. Nimura was quiet for a moment. "The hegemony controls our homeworld. We work here to earn credits for our families back home. If we do not work, they do not eat." Hyunwoo was beginning to understand that the galaxy was more complicated than he had thought. On Earth, his father always told him that the hegemony was a peaceful organization that helped different species work together. But here, it seemed more like the Vorthak were forced to work, not choosing to help. On the third day, the interrogations became more serious. Kethvar was brought before Commander Veltharion along with several other Elder Vorthak. The commander was convinced they knew something about the missing child. A human diplomatic child does not simply disappear, Veltharion said, his voice cold and threatening. Someone is hiding him. Tell me who, and your punishment will be light. Kethvar stood straight despite the pain from his previous questioning sessions. We know nothing of a human child, Commander. We work in the deep mines. We do not see the surface areas where humans stay. Commander Veltharion studied the old Vorthak's face. You are lying. I can see it in your eyes. I speak truth, Kethvar replied calmly. The commander gestured to his guards. Increase the pressure. Start with the youngest workers. Perhaps they will be more willing to talk. Back in the tunnels, Silthera was teaching Hyunwoo a simple Vorthak song to help him sleep. The boy was starting to have nightmares about being lost in the storm, and the alien lullaby seemed to calm him. Will I ever see my father again? Hyunwoo asked as Silthara tucked him into a sleeping alcove they had prepared. Yes, young one, she said, though her voice carried doubt. Your people will find a way to bring you home safely. What she did not tell him was that more Vorthak workers were being arrested each day. The questioning was becoming torture, and Commander Veltharion was threatening to execute random workers if the human child was not returned immediately. Nimara brought news from the surface the next morning. Her own parents had been taken for questioning, and several of the younger Vorthak were showing signs of serious injury from their interrogation sessions. Grandfather, she said to Kethvar, perhaps we should consider. No, the old Vorthak said firmly. The child is innocent. He is under our protection. But our people are suffering, Silthera argued. How many will die before this ends? Kethvar looked at Hyunwoo, who was practicing his Vorthak words with Nimura nearby. The human child had no idea of the sacrifice being made for him, and that was as it should be. Children should not carry the weight of adult decisions. Our honor is not negotiable, Kethvar said finally. If we abandon our principles to save ourselves, what are we? On the fifth day, Commander Veltharion made his final threat. Standing before the assembled Vorthak workers, he announced that he would begin executing one worker every hour until the human child was returned. The first to die was Thakairn, a young Vorthak who had been working to save money for his mate's medical treatment. He was shot in front of all the others as an example. In the deep tunnels, the sound of the execution weapon could be heard even through the rock. Hyunwoo looked up from his meal, frightened by the strange noise. What was that? He asked. Nothing, young one, Silthera said quickly. Probably just machinery breaking down. But Kethvar knew what the sound meant. He closed his eyes and whispered a traditional prayer for the dead. When he opened them again, his decision was made. That evening, as Hyunwoo slept peacefully in his alcove and Nimara watched over him, Kethvar spoke quietly with the other adult Vorthak. I will go to them tomorrow, he said. I will tell them I found the child and disposed of him to prevent contamination. They will execute me, but the rest of you will be safe. Grandfather, no, Nimara whispered, having overheard. There must be another way. Kethvar touched her face gently with one scaled hand. Little star, this is the way of honor. The child lives, our people live, and one old Vorthak gives his life for both. It is a good trade. Silthara spoke through her tears. What do we tell the boy? Tell him his people came for him while he slept, Kethvar said. Let him believe he was rescued, not that he was the cause of so much pain. As the others wept quietly, Kethvar prepared himself for the morning. He would walk into Commander Veltharion's presence and lie to save both the human child and his own people. It was the last gift he could give them both. Outside the tunnels, another Vorthak worker was executed as the hour mark passed. The sound echoed through the crystal formations, a grim reminder that time was running out for everyone. Captain Jinna Kim stared at the data coming from her ship's sensors as they approached Kepler 442b. Something was very wrong at the mining colony. The energy signatures showed recent weapons fire, and there were clear signs of civil unrest on the surface. Communications are being jammed from the surface, reported her first officer, Lieutenant Taewon Han. Hegemony protocols. A human diplomatic child goes missing and suddenly the hegemony starts jamming communications. Jinna's voice was cold. Ready the assault shuttles. Full diplomatic immunity protocols. Her ship, the EDF Defender, was one of Earth's newest vessels. While officially on a rescue mission, It carried enough firepower to level the entire mining operation if necessary. The disappearance of diplomat Daehyun Park's son had triggered automatic Earth Defense Force response protocols. On the surface, Keithvar walked slowly toward the administration building. He had said his final goodbyes to Hyunwoo while the boy slept. Touching his small forehead with one scaled finger and whispering a traditional Vorthak blessing for children, now he would lie to save them all. Commander. Veltharion was waiting in the main interrogation room, his patience finally exhausted. 6 Vorthak workers had been executed over the past day, and still no one had revealed the location of the human child. I know about the boy, Keithvar said as he entered the room. Veltharion looked up sharply. Finally. Where is he? Dead, Keithvar said simply. I found him during the storm. He was already dying from exposure. I disposed of the body to prevent contamination. You lie. Veltharion stood up, his face twisted with rage. Show me the body. The storm took it. I threw it into the deep ravines where the wind was strongest. It is gone. Commander Veltharion studied the old Vorthak's face carefully. Something in Keithvar's eyes convinced him that this might be the truth. The child had been missing for nearly a week in harsh conditions. It was possible he had died. You will show me exactly where this happened, Veltharion demanded. I will, Keithvar agreed. But first you will release the other workers. They knew nothing of this. Above them, Captain Jinna's ship entered the atmosphere without requesting permission. Her shuttles were already launching, filled with Earth Defense Force Marines. The time for diplomatic niceties had passed. In the deep tunnels, Silthara was explaining to a confused Hyunwoo why Keithvar had left without saying goodbye. He had important work to do, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He wanted you to know that he thinks you are very brave. Hyunwoo had learned enough Vorthak words to understand more than the adults realized. He knew something was wrong, but he trusted these alien beings who had kept him safe and fed. Will I see him again? The boy asked in his mixture of Korean and basic Vorthak phrases. Before Silthara could answer, the sound of explosions echoed through the tunnels. The Earth Defense Force was making its presence known. Captain Jinnah's Marines moved through the colony with professional efficiency. They had trained for hostage rescue operations, and the sight of alien bodies scattered around the mining facility told them this was exactly that kind of situation. Sir, Sergeant Bo Kyung-yoon reported over the comm. We have multiple alien casualties. Looks like executions. Recent ones. Jinnah's jaw tightened. Find that boy. And find whoever is responsible for this. The Marines reached the administration building just as Commander Veltharion was preparing to escort Keithvar to the supposed location where the human child had died. The hegemony commander found himself facing heavily armed Earth soldiers who were not in a diplomatic mood. Stand down immediately, Jinnah commanded as she entered with her personal guard. You are interfering with a human rescue operation. The child is dead, Veltharion replied. This Vorthak has confessed to disposing of the body. Jinnah looked at Keithvar, noting the obvious signs of torture and the resigned sadness in his golden eyes. Is this true? Keithvar met her gaze steadily. The boy died in the storm. I found him too late. But Captain Jinnah had been trained to read people, human and alien alike. Something in the old Vorthak's manner told her he was lying to protect someone, and if he was lying about the boy being dead. Sergeant Yoon, she ordered, begin a full sensor sweep of the entire colony. Look for human life signs. Start with the deepest areas. Ma'am, if the child is dead, Lieutenant Han began. He's not dead, Jinnah said firmly, and someone here knows where he is. The sensor sweeps took 3 hours. When they finally detected a small human biosignature deep in the crystal cave system, Jinnah felt both relief and growing anger. The boy was alive, which meant the Vorthak had been protecting him all along, which meant the executions she had seen were punishment for that protection. The rescue team that went into the tunnels was led by Dr. Mi Young-shin, the ship's xenobiologist. She understood alien cultures better than the Marines and might be able to communicate with whoever was hiding the boy. When they found the hidden chamber, Dr. Shin was not prepared for what she saw. Hyunwoo was sitting with a young Vorthak female, both of them working on what appeared to be a simple puzzle made from crystal fragments. Several adult Vorthak stood nearby, clearly protective but not threatening. Hyunwoo, Dr. Shin called softly. The boy looked up and his face broke into a huge smile. "Are you here to take me home?" he asked in Korean. But as the Marines moved forward, Hyunwoo did something unexpected. He turned to Nimara and spoke in careful Vorthak words. "These are my people. They will keep you safe too." Then he looked at Silthera and said, still in Vorthak, "Thank you for the songs. Thank you for keeping me warm." Dr. Shin watched in amazement as the human child communicated with his alien protectors in their own language. This was not a hostage situation. This was a family saying goodbye. "They protected me from the storm," Hyunwoo explained as Dr. Shin knelt beside him. "They gave me food and taught me songs. Kathavar said they would keep me safe until my people came." "Where is Kathavar?" Dr. Shin asked gently. The change in the Vorthak's behavior was immediate. Silthara made a low, mournful sound, and Nimara moved closer to Hyunwoo as if to protect him from bad news. "He had to go talk to the bad people," Hyunwoo said. "He told me to be brave." Dr. Shin looked at her scanner readings and realized the horrible truth. This old Vorthak, Kathavar, had probably gone to sacrifice himself to protect both the boy and his own people. And by the time they had arrived, it might already be too late. When they brought Hyunwoo to the surface, he was clinging to Nimara's hand and trying to comfort her with the few Vorthak phrases he knew. Captain Jinnah watched the reunion between father and son, but her attention was also on the aliens who had risked everything for a human child. "Tell me what happened here," she said to Daehyun as medics checked Hyunwoo. "The Vorthak protected him," Daehyun said, his voice thick with emotion. "According to my son, they found him during the storm and kept him hidden to keep him safe. And the hegemony punished them for it," Jinnah concluded, looking at the alien bodies scattered around the colony. Hyunwoo broke away from the medics and ran to where Kethvar's body lay. He knelt beside the old Vorthak and began to sing, in a young voice and broken pronunciation, one of the lullabies Silthara had taught him. Every human present stood in stunned silence as an 8-year-old boy mourned an alien who had died to protect him, singing in a language he had learned during a week of hiding in crystal caves. Captain Jinnah activated her ship's recording systems. Earth needed to see this. The recording of Hyunwoo singing the Vorthak morning song reached Earth within 18 hours. By the time it had been broadcast across human space, riots were beginning in 12 major cities. President Min-ho Choi watched the footage for the 5th time in his emergency cabinet meeting. The image of a human child crying over an alien's body while singing in their language was more powerful than any diplomatic protest could ever be. "How many Vorthak died protecting our child?" he asked Admiral Sojin Lee. "Current count is 14 confirmed dead, with another 23 seriously injured from interrogation," the Admiral replied, "all because they refused to reveal the boy's location." "And the hegemony knew they were protecting him?" "Intelligence suggests yes, sir. The executions were specifically intended to force them to give up the child's location." President Choi stood and walked to the window overlooking Seoul. Outside, protesters were gathering with signs demanding action. The footage of Hyunwoo had touched something deep in human consciousness. The idea that aliens had sacrificed themselves for a human child challenged everything people thought. They knew about interstellar relations. "What are our military options?" Choi asked. Admiral Lee activated the holographic display. "We have the 3rd Fleet positioned near hegemony space, 48 vessels including 6 of our newest battleships. But sir, if we take military action against the hegemony, we risk war with half the galaxy," Choi finished. "I understand the risks, Admiral. What I want to know is, can we win?" The question hung in the air. Earth's military had grown rapidly in recent years, but they had never been tested against a major galactic power. "Sir," Defense Minister Yoon Young-han spoke up, "our intelligence suggests that most hegemony member species are only loosely allied. If we demonstrate superior force and moral authority, many might abandon the coalition rather than fight us." On Kepler 442b, Captain Jinnah was coordinating the evacuation of surviving Vorthak workers. The remaining 41 members of the mining group were being loaded onto her ship, along with complete documentation of what had happened to their people. Nimara sat beside Hyunwoo as the transport lifted off. The young Vorthak had not spoken since her grandfather's death, and the human boy was trying to comfort her with the few words he knew in her language. "Captain," Dr. Mi Young-shin approached, "I've been documenting Vorthak culture and their decision-making process. What they did wasn't unusual for their species. They have something called the Shield of Innocence, a cultural obligation to protect any child, regardless of species, even at the cost of their own lives. Jinnah looked out at the retreating mining colony. They didn't just save one human child. They showed us what honor actually means. Back on Earth, emergency sessions were being held in parliaments and assemblies across human space. The public demand for action was overwhelming. For the first time in human history, an entire species had demonstrated that they valued human life above their own safety. Admiral Tae Sung-yoon was preparing the largest fleet deployment in Earth's history. Every available ship was being readied for what military planners were calling Operation Shield Wall. The plan is simple, Admiral Lee explained to the assembled fleet commanders. We escort every surviving Vorthak to safety, regardless of where they are in the galaxy. Any force that interferes with this evacuation will be considered hostile. Commander Ja-hyun Park, no relation to Dae-hyun, raised his hand. Sir, intelligence reports suggest there are Vorthak populations on 17 different worlds, many deep in hegemony space. This isn't a rescue mission, this is an invasion. No, Commander, Admiral Lee replied. This is a declaration. We're telling the galaxy that any species willing to die for human children will have humanity's protection, no matter what it costs us. The first test came at the Rigel station, where 300 Vorthak worked in the orbital construction yards. When Earth ships arrived to evacuate them, they were met by a hegemony enforcement fleet. Earth vessels, you are in violation of hegemony space, the alien commander transmitted. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. Captain Sung-min Kim, commanding the EDF Liberator, responded with words that would become famous throughout human space. Any species that protects our children is under our protection. Stand aside. Your threats mean nothing to the hegemony. We control this sector. Captain Kim's response was to power up his ship's weapon systems. The Liberator was one of Earth's newest designs, carrying firepower that dwarfed most hegemony vessels. I'm not threatening you, Kim said calmly. I'm informing you. These Vorthak are now under human protection. You can move aside, or you can explain to your superiors how you started a war by threatening beings who saved a human child. The hegemony commander, faced with weapons readings his sensors could barely comprehend, chose to withdraw. The evacuation of Rigel Station took 6 hours. As the Vorthak workers boarded human transports, many of them wept openly. They had lived their entire lives under hegemony control, never imagining that another species would risk war to protect them. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as Earth fleets arrived at Vorthak communities. Some hegemony forces chose to fight. They discovered that humanity's military technology was far more advanced than anyone had realized. President Choi's formal declaration came exactly 1 week after Hyunwoo's rescue. Standing before a joint session of the Earth Assembly, with Hyunwoo and Nimara sitting in the gallery, he spoke words that changed galactic politics forever. The species known as the Vorthak chose to protect a human child at the cost of their own lives. They asked for nothing in return. They expected no reward. They simply saw a child in danger and chose honor over safety. The president paused, looking up at Hyunwoo, who was holding Nimara's scaled hand. Today, I announce the Terran Protection Doctrine. Any species that protects human life at cost to themselves shall forever be shielded by the full might of humanity. The Vorthak are now and forever under Earth's protection. Any force that threatens them threatens us in the gallery. Nimara whispered to Hyunwoo in Vorthak. He whispered back in the same language, bringing smiles to both children's faces. Furthermore, the president continued, we are establishing the Vorthak Sanctuary Worlds, 3 planets where their species can rebuild their culture free from oppression. Any Vorthak who wishes to live in freedom need only ask, and humanity will bring them home. The applause in the assembly hall was deafening. But across the galaxy, the reaction was mixed. Some species began to reconsider their relationship with the hegemony. Others prepared for war. Admiral Sojin Lee received new orders that evening. Establish permanent defensive positions around all Vorthak populations. Rules of engagement. Any threat to protected species is to be met with overwhelming force. The message was clear. Humanity had found something worth fighting for, and they were not going to back down. In her quarters aboard the flagship, Dr. Mi Young Shin was helping Nimara record traditional Vorthak stories. The young alien was one of the few who remembered the old tales, and preserving their culture was as important as protecting their lives. Will humans really keep us safe forever? Nimara asked in her improving standard. Dr. Shin looked out the viewport at the escort ships surrounding them. Forever is a long time, but I think when humans make a promise like this, they mean to keep it. Outside, the stars held new meaning. They were no longer just distant lights. They were the space humanity would cross to keep their word to a species that had chosen honor over survival. 2 years after the Kepler 442b incident, the galaxy looked very different. Nimara stood in the observation deck of New Vorthak Prime, watching ships from dozens of species arrive and depart from the orbital stations. The young Vorthak, now fluent in both Korean and Standard, served as a cultural ambassador between her people and their human protectors. The Zalari delegation has arrived, she reported to Dr. Mi Young Shin, who had become the director of the Vorthak Cultural Preservation Institute. They're requesting formal protection status. Dr. Shin nodded as she reviewed the latest reports. The Zalari were the 7th species to formally request human protection in the past month. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about what humanity did for those who showed kindness to their people. What's their story? Dr. Shin asked. 3 months ago, a human trade vessel had engine failure in Zalari space. Instead of demanding payment for rescue services like most species would, the Zalari repaired their ship and gave them supplies for free. They said it was simply the right thing to do. Dr. Shin smiled. Schedule a meeting with their representatives. We'll need to verify their story, but if it checks out, they'll be welcome under the Protection Doctrine. The Terran Protection Doctrine had grown far beyond its original scope. What began as protection for the Vorthak had evolved into a galaxy-wide alliance of species who shared humanity's values of protecting the innocent and helping those in need. On Earth, 15-year-old Hyunwoo was preparing for his final exams at the Interspecies Academy. He had become something of a celebrity after the Kepler incident, but he preferred to focus on his studies in xenolinguistics and diplomatic relations. He was fluent in 17 alien languages now, including advanced Vorthak dialects that few humans had ever learned. Hyunwoo, his instructor, Professor Jin-Soo Lim, called after class. There's someone here to see you. In the hallway waited War Leader Thakmiran, the highest-ranking Vorthak military officer in the Terran Alliance. The massive alien had scars across his scaled face from the early conflicts with hegemony forces, but his golden eyes were warm when he looked at the young human. Little brother, Thakmiran said in perfect Standard, using the Vorthak term of endearment he had adopted for Hyunwoo. I bring greetings from the Council of Elders. War Leader, Hyunwoo replied in formal Vorthak, then switched to the more casual tone they used in private. It's good to see you. How are the new settlements progressing? Better than we dared hope. The third sanctuary world now has over 50,000 Vorthak colonists. Our population has tripled since we came under human protection. They walked together through the academy corridors, past classrooms where human and alien students learned side by side. This integration had been one of the unexpected benefits of the Protection Doctrine. As more species joined the Alliance, Earth had become a center of interspecies learning and cooperation. There is something I must tell you, Thakmiran said as they reached the Academy's memorial garden. In the center stood a statue of Kethvar, with an inscription in both human and Vorthak languages. He chose honor over survival, and changed the galaxy. The Council has decided to grant you the rank of Honor Friend, Thakmiran continued. It is the highest recognition our people can give to a non-Vorthak. You will be the youngest being ever to receive it. Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment, looking up at the statue of the old Vorthak who had died to protect him. I don't deserve this honor. Kethvar and the others made the real sacrifice. Which is exactly why you do deserve it, Thakmiran replied. You understand that honor is not about glory. It is about doing what is right regardless of cost. Across the galaxy, the hegemony coalition was fragmenting. 3 major member species had formally withdrawn to join the Terran Alliance, and dozens of others were reconsidering their allegiances. The brutal suppression of the Vorthak at Kepler 442b had become a symbol of everything wrong with the old galactic order. Admiral Ji Ho Nam, now commanding the largest fleet in human history, reviewed tactical reports from across Alliance space. The Terran Alliance Navy consisted of ships from 14 different species, all working together under human command. Vorthak warriors served as elite honor guards on every major vessel, their reputation for loyalty and courage making them highly sought after. Admiral, Captain Sujin Kwan reported from the bridge of the Taz Harmony. We're receiving a distress call from the Keth system. Hegemony forces are threatening the civilian population. Species? Admiral Nam asked. Mixed colony. Mostly refugees from former hegemony worlds who have requested Alliance protection. Response time? 18 hours at maximum burn. Admiral Nam stood, adjusting his uniform. Signal the fleet. We're moving to protect Alliance civilians. Rules of engagement. Anyone who threatens protected species gets one warning. After that, full defensive protocols. The Battle of Keth system lasted only 4 hours. When hegemony forces saw the size of the human response fleet, most chose to withdraw rather than fight. Those who remained were quickly overwhelmed by Alliance firepower and tactical superiority. But the real victory was not military. When Alliance relief ships arrived at the colony, they found something remarkable. The different species on the planet had worked together to protect each other during the crisis. Humans defended alien families, aliens shared their food with human children, and everyone worked together to repair damaged infrastructure. This cooperation had become the new normal in Alliance space. The protection doctrine had created something unprecedented, a galactic community based on mutual aid rather than dominance. On New Vorthak Prime, elderly Silthara was teaching history to a mixed class of children from 6 different species. Her students included humans, Vorthak, Zilari, and 3 other Alliance member species. They listened with wide eyes as she told them about the old days, when different species feared and exploited each other. Tell us about the storm again, asked a young human girl named So Young. Silthara smiled, her scaled face creasing with age and warmth. It was the worst storm anyone could remember. The wind howled like a living thing, and the sand cut through anything it touched. In the middle of this chaos, we found a small human child lost and frightened. What did you do? Asked a Zilari boy, even though he had heard the story many times. What anyone should do, Silthara replied. We brought him inside. We kept him warm and safe. We sang him songs when he had nightmares. Even though it was dangerous? Asked a young Vorthak. Especially because it was dangerous, Silthara said firmly. Doing the right thing when it is easy is not really doing the right thing at all. It is only when helping others costs us something that we truly show who we are. Hyunwoo, now a frequent visitor to New Vorthak Prime, entered the classroom just as Silthara finished the story. At 25, he had become one of the Alliance's most skilled diplomats, helping to integrate new species into the growing community. Uncle Hyunwoo. The children called out in various languages. He had become a beloved figure across Alliance space, not because of his childhood experience, but because of his work bringing species together. Grandmother Silthara, he said in perfect Vorthak, using the formal address of respect. Are you telling them about the old days again? Someone must remember, she replied. Someone must teach the young ones why we choose honor over ease. Hyunwoo looked around at the mixed group of children, all learning together in peace. This was what Kethavar had died for, not just to save one human child, but to preserve the possibility of a galaxy where different species could live and work together as equals. The Alliance Council has asked me to carry a message to all Alliance worlds, Hyunwoo announced. We now have 47 member species representing over 300 billion beings. We control nearly 1/3 of galactic space. But our greatest achievement is not our size or our military power, he gestured to the children, who were already playing together regardless of their different appearances and abilities. Our greatest achievement is proving that beings from different worlds can choose to protect each other, to help each other, and to build something better together than any of us could build alone. Outside the classroom window, the stars sparkled with new meaning. No longer did they represent the vast emptiness between hostile worlds. Now they marked the paths between friends, the routes that Alliance ships traveled to bring help to those who needed it, and protection to those who chose honor over survival. In the memorial garden on Earth, fresh flowers appeared daily at the base of Kethvar's statue. Beings from dozens of species came to pay their respects to the old Vorthak, who had started a revolution simply by choosing to protect a lost child. The inscription at the base had been expanded over the years. Now it read, Kethvar of the Vorthak, who chose honor over survival and taught the galaxy that protecting others is the highest calling of any civilized being. His sacrifice lives on in every Alliance world, every protected species and every child who sleeps safely because someone chose to care. The galaxy had indeed changed. Where once there was exploitation and fear, now there was cooperation and hope. And it all began with an old alien warrior who decided that protecting one small human child was worth more than his own life.